Horizon gents, welcome to GRX, and this is why America's economic crisis is worse than it looks. By channel TLDR News Global. Yes, people told me like this might not be the best channel, this and that. I get it, but like I don't have any source. Comment down if you know any good video. I guess I don't know. But right now, like this is like a follow up to a video already watched about like how economy is kind of tanking and how it could look up. I don't know, but this is like one of the videos after that which says it looks worse than it looks. Like I don't know. Yeah, recently I saw some like breaking news. This and just titles where they show how much economy has gone down. China, they would what like 100+% of tariff on China. China is doing similar things back. China is banning Hollywood movies and things. I know who cares about Hollywood. Like, it's not just about Hollywood. It's about economy, right? Hollywood is one of your like income source. How big it is, who the fuck knows? But China is like a big revenue source for a lot of Hollywood movies. Whole Transformers series wouldn't exist right now if it wasn't for China. John Cena had to apologize in Mandarin just because he talked about Taiwan, because otherwise Fast and Furious would have like lost a lot of money. That's because of China, right? So I don't know what kind of issues it would rise if Hollywood can put movies there. I don't know what's going to happen, but this video is going to be interesting, I guess. Let's watch it. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. If you know any other good videos that I can react to, comment down, right? Even if I don't reply, you try to watch all the comments that is, read all the comments. At least in the latest video, I have too many videos on my channel. Like sometimes like comments become overwhelming, but I try to watch latest videos, comments as much as I can. So comment down if you want to react to any specific video. And yeah, let's watch it.
This video is brought to you by Nebula. The American economy isn't in great nick at the moment. Trump's tariffs have crippled the stock market, spooked international investors, and pushed the US towards recession. But the crisis is now spreading.
Is it just me? Like, it doesn't matter what your however you think of Trump. Every time he comes on, like he has something. This time it was a prop, like this board or something. Look at this. Look at this tariff and all the return tariff. We're gonna, look at this. Some of this is funny, right? And I know Trump also thinks it's funny, so he's low-key doing that, right? Every time he speaks, he's trying to like crack a joke or something. Like, some kind of, he always has this mood going on. That's his personality. That's how he was back then whenever he was like hosting TV shows and things.
Beyond the stock market. So in this video, we're going to have a look at why the markets have responded so negatively to Trump's tariffs, and why this crisis is even worse than it looks at first.
Why? What is that why? If you're gonna like slap tariffs on a lot of countries, yeah, it's literally roadblocks. You're putting roadblocks there, so of course the economy is gonna tank. Your hope is like these companies like Apple and everyone just come back to US and put factories there. That's what tariff does, but it's still a roadblock. Of course, it's gonna stop the flow of economy.
Right. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. So let's just start by explaining why the markets have reacted so negatively to Trump's tariffs. Because, well, usually tariffs don't provoke such severe reactions from markets. That's because while tariffs do have some negative economic...
Yeah, it does. What you talking about? Usually people don't slap tariff this aggressively. It's like slowly add to it so like you don't feel it.
Consequences, they usually don't have that much of an immediate impact on GDP growth. If you put tariffs on foreign cars, for instance, that's inconvenient for anyone who wants to import a cheap car from another country, because they have to buy a more expensive one that's manufactured domestically. But the consumer is actually spending more money than they would otherwise, and it's going to a domestic business, which can reinvest it or spend it on wages. Sure, the economy is less efficient, which will put a drag on growth in the longer term, and maybe increase inflation, but in the short term there's not much of an impact. Trump's tariffs are different for at least two reasons. First, their scope and severity. Usually when a country imposes tariffs, it's to protect a specific industry. Last year, for instance, the Biden administration put massive tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles in an attempt to protect American EV manufacturers from Chinese competitors like BMW.
Yeah, that is true, right? Like in India, the government put tariffs on Harley Davidsons, insane amount of tariffs, which I'm a Harley guy, so kind of pissed me off. But yeah, and I could understand that because there's a local company here called Royal Enfield. Even though I would argue those two are not the same bike. Harley is a tier above. Their engines are way too big. It's like 2000 cc's compared to 500, 350 cc or some shit like that. It's not the same. But still, so Harley Davidson doesn't break Royal Enfield's market. Yeah, they put tariff on. Kind of makes sense. That happens a lot.
BYD and Xiaomi. Trump, however, has put a 10% tariff on everything and then higher tariffs on most of America's trading partners, with only very limited exemptions. This means America's average tariff rate is now just over 23%, 6 times what it was last year, and the highest in more than a century. This also means tariffs could backfire. While targeted tariffs might shield America from international competition, flat tariffs, like the ones Trump's imposed, will make all their imported components more expensive, potentially making them less competitive overall. Second,
the economy the world have right now is American economy. After World Wars, USA was in unique position to dictate things, and that is why most currencies still was and still is tied to the dollar. American economy is world economy, and when you do that, when you have a unique monopoly in every other country in the world, other countries will have to balance things out. That's why other countries put tariff on things, so they don't lose everything. America goes to certain country, uses their resources, their labor, makes something and make profit. That country loses a lot of things in the process, so they have to put tariffs on and do this kind of economical dance to somewhat even things out, even though they can't completely even it out. USA still makes profit. That's why $40 trillion economy USA has. If you're just gonna we need fairness, somebody puts tariffs on us, we have to put tariff back on them. Yeah, you will lose your monopoly if you do that. You don't have 40 trillion worth of goods. You don't have 40 trillion worth of labor. The economy is gonna tank a lot if you do that. You have unique monopoly where you uses world's resources and labor to make money right now. Because everything you set up after World Wars, that's going to go away if you aggressively go after this like this.
And the immense uncertainty involved. No one knows how long Trump's tariffs will last, what recipient countries have to do to get them off, or whether they'll go up or down in the future. The Federal Reserve's so-called Trade Policy Uncertainty Index is literally off the charts, the highest it's ever been. Uncertainty is terrible for an economy because it encourages businesses and consumers to hide their money away instead of investing or spending. It's also terrible for Trump's stated project.
It is insanely effed up. Remember during COVID time, people actually told go out and do shopping. Hell, we'll give you money. Government gave money to people just so they can spend. So the gears keep on running. You don't want that flow to stop, because if it stops, restarting that would have an insane backlog, right? I don't know who, I think it was CGP video I watched a long time ago, where they showed how in highway, if one car breaks, then it creates kind of a snake effect, where everybody will break and there will be massive traffic jam. That is how economies work. So you need that gear to work, right? If there's an uncertainty in economy like that, people will not spend money, people will not invest. And if that happens, even if you solve it a year after, that will have effect that will be felt for a decade and more. That's insane. You don't want that shit to happen.
Of reindustrialization, because, well, reindustrializing America would require trillions of dollars of sustained investment. Anyway, this is why markets have reacted so negatively to Trump's tariffs. Goldman Sachs, for instance, thinks a recession is more likely than not if Trump's tariffs take effect, up from 20% a month ago. Betting markets like Polymarket and Kalshi currently put the
You should always trust Goldman Sachs. They've never done anything wrong for the American people.
Odds at over 60%, up from 20% in February. The looming threat of a recession has wrought havoc on the American stock market. The S&P 500, a weighted index of the 500 biggest American companies, is currently down about 20% from its February peak and is seesawing wildly. While it's true that the stock market isn't the real economy, this American economy relies more than ever on demand from the richest 10% of earners, who now account for half of all spending.
I mean, yeah, okay, stock market is not really economy, but if it goes haywire short term, it's fine. But if it goes haywire for a long time, it is kind of the economy. Like that is every major company is part of the stock market. Their shares is what gives them the worth. Oh, Elon Musk is the richest guy in the world right now. Why? Because the shares went up, right? It can easily go down like that, right? Like, okay, so short term, I mean, I guess it goes up and down based on like whatever shit happening and people panic. Long term, if it stays down, like that's gonna be fucked up.
And whose spending patterns are disproportionately affected by movements in the stock market. However, while the stock market decline and the prospect of a recession have clearly attracted the most media attention, peek under the proverbial bonnet and this crash starts to look even scarier. First, the media's focus on stocks obscures the worrying movements we're seeing in American government bonds, otherwise known as treasuries. Usually, during times of crisis, stocks decline, but treasuries rally as investors shift their money from risky stocks to safer bonds. This time, however, that's not happening. Instead, people are actually selling treasuries at the same time as stocks, which is why the yield on treasuries, in other words, the interest
Oh, fuck it. We don't trust the market, but I don't trust Trump either. What should we do? I could take money and like bury it underground or something. Yeah, we're not going to invest in anything.
that the US has to pay on its debt is rising. On Monday, for instance, the yield on 10-year treasuries rose from just below 3.9% to just below 4.2%, which is a pretty enormous single-day movement for treasuries. This is bad news for Trump for two reasons. First, it suggests that investors no longer see the US as a safe place to park their money. And second, it will put even more strain on America's precarious fiscal position. As we've detailed in previous videos, and as you probably already know, the federal government has an enormous debt burden, representing something like 120% of GDP, and is currently running a massive deficit of around 6% of GDP. Things already look like they'd get worse under Trump, because he wants trillions of dollars in tax cuts without equivalent spending cuts, and Doge has failed to really make a dent in the budget. But if the US slips into recession, which means lower tax revenues and treasury yields stay high because investors no longer see treasuries as a safe recession-proof asset, a full-blown debt crisis could be on the cards. Something similar has happened to the dollar as well. Like treasuries, the dollar used to be seen as a safe haven asset, which meant that it usually rallied during times of uncertainty, even while American stocks were falling. Most analysts also thought Trump's tariffs would put upwards pressure on the dollar, both because, again, it's seen as a safe asset, but also because Trump's tariffs will probably have more of a negative impact on America's trading partners than on America, which would put downwards pressure on their currencies and therefore boost the dollar. However, that's not what's happened. As you can sort of see from looking at this chart, which measures the dollar's strength against a basket of other currencies, the dollar has actually been falling for the past few months. Again, this is bad news because it suggests global confidence in the dollar is waning, but also because it threatens to stoke inflation. One of the reasons people thought Trump could essentially get away with his tariffs was because, even if they introduced some friction into America's trading relationships, which would in theory stoke inflation, this could be mostly offset by the subsequent strengthening of the dollar, which would make all imports cheaper for the average American. A weak dollar, however, threatens to actually exacerbate any tariff-induced inflation, which is why analysts are now fretting about the possibility of inflation.
Yeah, like I said in the first video, like there's so many elements, right? Like the butterfly effect of economies, like tracking that is insane, right? That's why like anytime they make a like stock market movie, most people like, what the fuck happened there? Like they just scratch their head because they can't really keep track of what is happening. Wolf of Wall Street, what was the other one? I forgot, with the Brad Pitt one, right? Moneyball and shit like that. Like, oh, what is happening? Like they have to watch 2-3 times. It's really insane, and I don't know if Trump is like thinking this through. He's just like going from like one element, like, oh, we just need factories back. Okay, right now war is happening around the world. Like countries like China and like just stepping away from the dollar as their like tether, right? Dollar was the tether of the world where every currency was tied to it, right? Nowadays, like that's changing. Like Russia doesn't care. Obviously, they've never cared. China is walking away because they've become like so rich. They're like their own thing, right? So I don't know, man. Like how good there was a gold standard, then it became like dollar is the gold standard. But that's changing now, and all this shit is happening right now. Like, what is the effect this is gonna cause? Like, is dollar gonna get stronger or gonna collapse? Is economy gonna jump back or is it like in weird spiral? That doesn't matter what you do. It's like it's gonna be really hard to keep it up.
Going back up to the 5% range. If this happens, not only would it be terrible for American consumers, it would also set Trump up for a showdown with the Federal Reserve, with Trump pushing for interest rate cuts to stimulate growth, and the Fed pushing for pauses or even hikes to stem inflation. And if Trump were to steamroll or ignore the Fed in some way, which feels increasingly likely, we could see a crisis of confidence more severe than anything in modern history. This story, like much of the news, is worth paying attention to in the weeks ahead. Because with geopolitics in flux and Trump throwing the international order up in the air, there's a lot to keep an eye on. Every day we're faced with weird headlines, from Musk declaring anyone who looks at him the wrong way a terrorist, to Trump declaring war on Jupiter to try to regain some extraterrestrial allies. Okay, that one isn't real, but we do dive into the weird world of US politics in our series WTF USA.
Yeah, well, go to original video page and from there support this channel. Yeah, somebody told me in the comments like I don't care about the economy and all that detailed shit. Like I only care that I don't have a job, and this will bring back some jobs, and that is true, right? Like there will like because of if Trump goes strongly about this, there will be factories that were in China and other places that will be come back to USA because companies like Apple and other companies where Amazon realize like wait a minute, now it's cheaper to have something in America compared to something else. So jobs will come back. So there is that. But overall, if your country becomes like go from 40 trillion to like really low and starts to get poor, not to mention global security for you because you've been like this big muscular thing, walking around the world. Now people see weakness if your economy drops. Not to mention military spendings will have to cut. There's so many shit will happen if your economy drops, right? And like I said, you don't have $40 trillion worth of goods or labor for you. You have this unique monopoly in the world that is like making you this much rich. If you just slap tariffs like that, that monopoly is going to go away. People will realize like, okay, you know what? Let's do our own thing and not rely on USA, which is kind of fucked up thing. Like it's like irreversible damage there, right? People walking away from dollar, that would be irreversible damage. Right, so there's so many factors here this could be one of those things that like for decades from now will be felt like okay, this was a damage that was like seriously ridiculous. I don't know what's gonna happen, right? But this is just fucked up. This tariff thing, and China is like really crucial for your economy because China has really cheap labor and makes a lot of shit that you use. Entire world, right? India has 1.4 billion people, and yet a lot of things the Indian use is coming from China. That's how insane it is. So if you put that much tariff on China, what is it gonna do to you and your economy, man? And the problem is like a lot of things that China make, you don't wanna make, right? Like some cheap and just easy things. So what about that? Like you're just making those things expensive for what? Alright, well, that was why America's economic crisis was than it looks by channel TLDR News. If you like my content, don't forget, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.